G'day and welcome to Aussie Vision. I'm Dale, and we've just had another crazy week in the Eurovision world. And I tell you what, I am exhausted. I know we've had a lot of Super Saturdays / Super Sundays here in Australia over the last few weeks, but I tell you what, last week it really took the cake. Mainly because we had the 5-day long extravaganza, which is the Sanremo Music Festival from Italy. So not only was it that kind of one day, it was like 5 days straight, getting up early, sitting through the marathon or watching it while working from home, trying to keep up with it all. And then it all culminated into a little bit of a party we had here for Sanremo with a few friends. Early morning Prosecco is quite amazing, but it's also quite exhausting. And I think I slept for like 5-6 hours in the afternoon to get over it all. So it has been a big few weeks. Now, today we'll be going through Sanremo with Liv, who is our resident expert. We'll also be talking about Estonia, Norway, Poland, and Lithuania. Now, also, Armenia did choose their artist, which was Pug with Survivor. Now, we won't be going through that this week. We'll either hold it over till next week or we'll just talk about it in the lead up. You know, we didn't get to really kind of follow that one as much as we wanted to, so we'll just focus on the ones that the Aussie Vision team really focus on, know what we're talking about, but well done, Pug, nonetheless. And of course, Mike will be joining us to give his verdict on a Nordic song. Which country? You'll find out if you just hold on in the show. All right, without further ado, let's crack on with it. Well, there was only one national final / festival that everyone was focusing on all week, which was Italy's Sanremo Music Festival. And covering it for the Aussie Vision team for nearly the entire week was Liv from the Aussie Vision team. Liv, have you recovered from that marathon that was Sanremo?
Well, look, I'll tell you something. I was on call for my real life job on the weekend, and I really needed a nice glass of Prosecco or perhaps 6 or 7 to get through that festival. And unfortunately, I had to be very dry.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing because I had a couple of glasses of Prosecco on the Sunday morning while I watched it, and it just made it all a bit emotional at times as well. Dramatic, I would say, at some points. But before we get on to the actual results of it, let's talk about the show overall, because we obviously had a different direction. Amadeus retired from it last year. This year, it was Carlo Conti. What did you think about the show overall and the direction it was this year?
Look, I went into it open-minded. Carlo's done this before. It's not his first rodeo of Sanremo, but the whole feeling of the festival just didn't have as much heart. Like, honestly, my meme folder is usually bursting by the end of Sanremo every year. And at the moment, it's the Sahara Desert. I've got maybe 2 screenshots that I can giggle at a little bit, and that's it, which is, I don't know, if that's not saying something, I think it is. But even the guest performers that they chose, they just weren't as engaging. For people who could understand Italian, the humor just wasn't as good. It just was kind of underwhelming, to be honest. The overall song quality, slightly below average as well. So I think overall, it was still a really fantastic show, as it always is. However, not as good as previous.
Yeah, I kind of hear you there. Look, I mean, the last few years we've been very spoiled. It has been just incredible at just the highest level. Well, this year, I don't think it was quite up there, but I still, by the end of the week, I really loved a lot of the songs, and I did love a lot of the performances, but I kind of, with you there, was kind of just missing a little bit more whimsy or fun about the whole thing, I guess. It did feel a little bit, I don't know, maybe traditional at sometimes.
It took itself very seriously this year, I can tell you that. It's a bit of it reminds me of Sanremo about 10 years ago, to be honest.
All right, well, let's focus on the positive, because we had a winner that I was actually really happy with at the end. Now, Liv, would you do the honors of introducing the winner for us?
Of course. It was Oli with Balloda Nostalgia.
Well, look, Ollie was kind of, around the pack. He was up there in the favourites. Always kind of thought he'd be around the top 5, but I must say the actual win did come as a surprise to me. Though afterwards, I could kind of see where it all kind of came from. It was a really good week for him as quite a kind of a newish performer, only his second time at Sanremo. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was a bit of an interesting result because unlike a year perhaps when Marco Mengoni was winning, you looked at the results and how they came out from night 1 to 5, and he was always in there first, second, like up at the top. And even when you look at Angelina Mungo, she was always in that top 3. Now, when you look at Ollie's results, there were nights when he was down in 6th and 5th and then 2nd and 1st. And so it really was all over the place. And there wasn't really the same person winning 2 nights in a row, which is quite unusual for recent festival results. So he did manage to, wrap it all up when it mattered and come home with the Golden Lion.
He did indeed. Look, I love the actual song and performance. Like, I wouldn't say it was my favorite. I think it's maybe my 3rd favorite song, but I really loved, I thought he, particularly on the last, like, absolutely smashed performance, even though it looked like he was going to pop a vein out of his neck or have a stroke at some point because of the amount of effort he was putting into the whole thing. But it did seem like there was a bit of a different scoring system this year that might have influenced the result in the end. It seemed very confusing. They had a flow chart at some point, but even now today, Liv, I don't really understand how it all went down. I just know Ollie won. What, do you know now?
Honestly, like normally I feel like I have a good rap on these things, but it wasn't made entirely clear how they were going to do it. There was a difference from previous years that was quite notable, and that is that the cover nights were not included in the results of the initial 6th place down to 29th, because if the cover results were included, Georgia did win cover nights, so she 100% would have made that top 5, and there would have been some notable shuffling around there. So it was quite a bizarre sequence of events, really, how they decided to do it.
All right, well, that was all the scoring. Now, before we move on, we need to come back and talk about Ollie, because I said I loved the performance and I loved the song, and I thought it was a worthy winner in the end. But I think you bypassed that, Livs. Like, what do you think of the song, and do you think it's a worthy winner?
I did do a bit of a hop, skip, jump, didn't I? Well, like many songs at Sanremo, it kind of started off a bit mid for me, and then by the end of the contest, I was, weeping and totally in love. I do think it was a worthy winner, and I've always said this, that the right song and something that should be there always makes its way to the front of the pack. It just does. And I think this is a really quality entry. It's one of the more contemporary ones from this festival, and we were in a little bit of a drought of stuff that you could actually listen to on the radio. That's another thing we can thank Carlo for, is we had a lot of very classical Italiano male ballad type things. And this was one of those, but in a contemporary way.
I definitely agree. Now, look, we don't know if Ollie's actually going to go to Eurovision. Obviously, the winner of Sanremo doesn't automatically go. And I think in the press conference, he said he was going to take some time to come back and think about it. So what's going on there? What's your take on this?
Yes, and that sort of freaked everyone out. But let me just reassure everybody that, yes, it usually does actually take a few days, if not a few weeks, for an artist to decide. I think we've just been a little spoilt the last few festivals, where the artist has just been like, oh my God, Eurovision, yeah, hell yeah. And then they've just sort of confirmed it within 24 hours. So he's taking a bit of time to think about it. He actually does have a few small concerts booked actually during Eurovision. So I'm sure there's a lot of logistical contractual stuff that if he does want to do Eurovision, he'll have to sort that out first. So just wait a little bit. This is obviously a fantastic opportunity for him to get his music in front of many eyeballs. So I would actually be surprised on a personal level if he didn't go.
Yeah, I'm really hoping. I think he'd be the right choice, not just because of winning Sanremo, but out of that lot, I think he really would work at Eurovision. And look, I did see those tour dates, and I think I sent you the screenshot like immediately on Sunday going, oh my God, is he not going to go? And you reassured me. But look, I still feel very 50-50 about the whole thing. That's a lot of things to change. But I don't know, like I think it'll work, but we'll have to wait and see. And I guess we have to wait a week. Now, do you know, Liv, what normally happens about if Ollie does decide not to do it? What actually happens then? Who do they choose?
Yes, well, the last time this happened was actually in 2016 with Francesca Michelin. She didn't actually win Sanremo that year. She came second. And at the time, it was up to the discretion of the creative director to then choose what song they wanted. Now, because she had a really nice contemporary radio-friendly song, and also she did come second, it was sort of quite an easy decision to offer it to her. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just sort of make their way down the placings. Now, second place was Lucio Corsi. Now, that entry is so incredibly Italian that I just don't really think it's quite right for the Eurovision stage. And, there is a potential that they might skip over him or something just to try and get a more contemporary song out there, like Fidesz, for instance, in fourth. But I would say that on the off chance Ollie says no, they probably will just be kind and go down the placings until someone says yes.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I do think the second place would be something that won't really work at Eurovision. As much as I respect it, I didn't even really enjoy it that much in Sanremo. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't love it. And, it was an interesting top five overall because it was really close between first and second. It ended up being all male. Did you have any surprises in that top five, Liv?
Surprises? Well, I'm a pleasant surprise, I want to say, actually was third place getter, Brunori Sas, because I always said that Lucio, Brunori, and Simone were kind of competing for the same markets, whether it was jury or televote. They all had very much traditional harking back Italian songs that were very nostalgic and just something that, could be at Sanremo in 1960 or this festival. And to see him sort of right up there in the mix above Simone, I always connected with that song the most on the emotional level of any entry at the festival this year. So I'm glad he was recognized in that way.
And look, I was really pleased to see Fidesz in there in fourth place. I really thought if it wasn't going to be Ollie, out of the men, I would have liked it to be Fidesz. Really contemporary song, fantastic, and did really well. And, Simone finished fifth in the end after getting huge sort of televotes early in the week. That really dropped off. And I'm not kind of surprised. We kind of spoke about it earlier during the week, saying that emotional heft was kind of going to run out of steam because he didn't really have the vocal to back it up. Well, talking about both vocals, though, Georgia, that was the story. That was the shock and the surprise because, we both really thought she was going to take it out. What happened?
Well, quite bizarrely, really. She was first with the press jury, first with the radio jury, sixth with the televote, which somehow landed her in sixth going into that final little stint. And the reason for that is because they do actually include your results from the previous evenings into the mix for that final result there. Now, because she was sort of first on the first night, but then I think fifth on when you combine nights 2 and 3, by a very, very small margin, that meant she just missed out on the top 5, which was quite devastating. But it was interesting to find out because a lot of people assumed it was the juries that dogged her, but actually it was the public in the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It seemed to be just maybe the complicated kind of nature of the scoring kind of did her in the end because she still did okay with the public vote, but not massive. But it's a real shame for her not to be in that top 5 was just, just terrible. The shock I think we all felt for that. And oh my God, the crowd went off, didn't they? They were jeering. They were upset about Achille Lauro, but then when Georgia was announced, it was like I thought they were going to tear down the theatre.
Well, Carla Conti's co-hosts, they just looked shell-shocked. They had hands over their mouths, clutching their pearls, and they then did like this pan to the orchestra, and like a whole bunch of the people in the orchestra had just turned around in their seats to look at the scoreboard and just like open-mouthed shock, just like, what the heck did we just see?
The biggest shock I think I've definitely seen on Sanremo over the years of watching it all, not for her to make the top 5, and it has caused a bit of discussion because I think we know in the past that men generally have done a lot better over the years, and has certainly come out a little bit about whether the females just aren't kind of getting the unfair treatment. But it seems to me often coming from the public vote on that side. Like, any thoughts on what's going on there in Italy?
Yeah, well, I mean, this year, no females in the top 5 and just one female in the top 10. And I think we all thought this year could have been the start of a new leaf because Angelina won last year. And if Georgia had won this year, it would have been the first time in, I believe, 21 years since 2 female acts had won back-to-back at Sanremo. So it would have been a huge moment in Italian history. And I think a lot of people were really willing for that. But there definitely is some kind of bias that's going on there because the women were phenomenal, and across the board, they were just not rewarded at all.
Yeah, that's it. It's not just an opinion. There is the statistics there to back all this up. Well, look, out of that sort of shock in the top 5, was there any other sort of, I mean, you could probably talk about all 29, but is there any other ones that you want to make a special mention of at all?
I think we just need to quickly talk about Achille Lauro. I mean, it was a very special festival for him. He sort of, put on his big boy boots and proved that I can do a big Italian ballad and draw the crowds and the love and the admiration of the professionals and all that. And unfortunately, due to, once again, the fact that they used results from earlier in the festival with the ones from later in the festival, which were in fact better, he did also just miss out and finish in 7th. But I think, bigger and better things for him. He'll be back at another festival and right up there again.
Yeah, no, good one to mention there. And I always feel like, I reckon if you go back and look through all the seventh places over the years, they're always really good. There's things like Madame, there's Elodie with Andromeda back in the day. I think even Chow Chow might have been around there. I can't remember. I always feel like 7th place is where like the real good stuff is. They're around there somewhere. So I think it was a bit of a tough result for, as you say, he put his big boy boots on, did his thing, and to only get 7th it's a bit tough there. That kind of felt like a 4th, 5th type song, but oh well, what can you do? And a Comic Calls there making the 10 I was pleased to see. That song was just in my head all week. And I did a great little performance in one of more of the kind of fun upbeat songs, so I was glad to see them, I think, come 10th. I hope I'm correct there. All right, Liv, well, that was Sanremo for a whole another year. I've got Tutta Italia in my head all week as well. Thanks so much for your coverage again and for joining us on the podcast. We'll see you next time.
My pleasure.
Well, over to Norway now, and we have the amazing Emma from the Aussievision team to talk about Melody Grand Prix. Welcome to the podcast, Emma. I think this is the first time for you this season.
It is. That's right, Dale.
Well, now, you've been watching Melody Grand Prix for years now. We've covered this together many times. I'm very interested to see what you thought about the show overall and maybe the song quality.
Yeah, look, I think going into before the show, there was a bit of talk amongst the fandom that perhaps the quality wasn't there with Norway this year, certainly based on the studio versions of the 9 competing songs that we got. But yeah, I actually thought when everything came together really well, all of the songs were staged, they looked Eurovision ready, really. If, whichever song won, I think wouldn't have needed too much alterations. And I think we saw a change in the format for a start. So in the last 5 or 6 years, Norway has had 5 semi-finals leading up to a final. So it's been a long road to follow the competition right the way through. This year, they did away with the semi-finals. They just did the one final. And I actually think that was much better. It allowed the fans to just focus on a smaller set of songs. And in the end, I actually sat watching the show and thought, gee, this is all right. I don't know what everyone was complaining about. There was quite a few songs that I thought could have easily represented Norway quite well at Eurovision and done a good job. So I think they did a great job. I enjoyed the show.
Yeah, I do think they always put on such a great show. And, I agree the final was, I think, the right thing to do. I think over the years I've enjoyed some of the heats and semis, but it started to kind of have diminishing returns and you felt like you got the same kind of, there was like a sea shanty, a Viking song and this song and that. It ticked every box each time. So it was kind of nice to just concentrate. And it seemed like a good show, even though I didn't get to catch all of it. I caught up with a lot of the performances. Now, talking about performances, let's talk about our winner. And let's have a little listen first. It's Kyle Alessandro with Lighter. Emma, it was the favourite going in, and then it really won quite comfortably in the end. What did you think of this, and was it a deserved winner?
Absolutely. I think Kyle was the favourite going in. I think only second with the Aussievision team in the rankings, but I think this was absolutely the right choice. You can see why he was the favourite. The performance was Eurovision stage ready. There isn't a lot that you would need to do to that, but the guy's got a great voice. For me, I find he sounds a little bit like Shawn Mendes. very current sound. The song itself, I remember when I first listened to the studio version, I was a little bit taken aback because there was so much happening, and at the time I thought I didn't expect it to be one of my top ranked songs, but then I think I might have ranked it second from memory. And then I watched it again and again, or listened to it rather, and thought, oh, this is actually really growing on me. It's very catchy and there's a lot happening, but I still enjoyed it, and I was glad when I saw the live performance. It had everything, lots of pyro, a dance break, and there was a little soft sort of a cappella piece to camera. Yeah, I really looked at it and thought, wow, this is the one for Norway to send, and I think it was the right choice.
Yeah, I think Mike and I talked about it on the bonus episode last week, and he wasn't that impressed with the studio. And I must say, I wasn't that impressed. I was a bit midfieldy for me, but I could see that you could see the potential. We were like, okay, what's this going to be like live? You can pull this all together. And I have to say, I was really impressed with the live performance. I thought it looked so sleek. It looked so well done. Staged it perfectly. And for a song that is a little bit, I wouldn't say it flatlines completely. There are some moments, but it's not a lot of peaks and troughs, and it is a bit repetitive, which is good for it to be catchy, but it can be a bit monotonous. But the staging allowed it just to even set something on fire. Like, it's very simple, but sometimes that works, right? It's simple but effective. And there's nothing really like this in the Eurovision lineup so far. I mean, Sweden's still got to choose, right? But Males is doing a little kind of commercial pop song. It kind of weirdly stands out this year so far.
Absolutely. We've seen at the moment, we've got a lot more girls than guys in the competition. Obviously, that the balance changed a little bit yesterday. But yes, so I think, yeah, you're right. There is nothing like this in the competition so far. We've got 16 or 17 songs selected. So it's still a little way to go. But if they had selected one of the female artists, then they would have been swamped by all the other female pop that we have in the competition already. So I think this is absolutely the best choice for Norway.
Yeah, and I only realised, I think it might have even been yesterday after he won, that he was part of Umami Tsunami from a few years ago.
Right, he was, yes. And I didn't know that originally when I first heard the song, and found that out afterwards. Yes, so they came ninth in 2023. I actually went back and watched it earlier today, and went, oh wow, I had no idea. And so it's great that he's finally got to realise his Eurovision dream.
I'm glad he recovered from that train wreck from 2023, and he was a talented one, and he's done really well to come through here. Now, let's talk about some of the others, because look, Nataline with the game, I thought was a really, really interesting and sort of bombastic performance, and she did a great job. Second place, and I think also perhaps, as you said, it could have suffered if it went to Eurovision, and maybe some comparisons to other songs that have come out in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. So the game was actually written by the same team of songwriters that wrote Queen of Kings for Alessandra, who represented Norway a couple of years ago. And I think you could see the comparisons there. The other comparison that I actually thought of myself while I was watching it, I've had a couple of other people mention to me, is that she does have a very similar look and sound to Sweden's Clara Hammerstrom, who's currently taking part in Melfest. So, if Clara was to get through, we could have had two very similar songs and artists. But I did enjoy her performance. She just absolutely looks amazing on stage, but the voice that comes out of her is quite surprising. She's got quite a sort of deep, gutsy voice that you don't expect to come out of somebody who looks like that. So it made for quite an interesting watch. And look, I think she did a great job. She finished second with the jury, third with the public, and finished second overall. Yeah. I think if she had won, she would have been a worthy representative, but possibly would have been swamped by all the other female pop that we've got in the competition already.
Yeah, I think she's a great artist, and I'm so intrigued by her voice, because she can go from that low range where she's really, I don't think even I can do that, and then she goes to this really high register as well, which is just brilliant. So I'd love to see her come back, maybe with a song that feels a little bit more original, because it just, people would have totally recognised that at home about being similar to Queen of Kings. And for the Eurovision fans, Run to the Hills, I could literally hear it in the song. Like, it was just
Yes,
there, right? So
that's right. Yes.
I'd love to see her come back and have another go, because that voice is so interesting. So well done
Yeah,
her.
for sure.
And third place was a little bit of a surprise. A lot of public love for this. It was the 1985 winners. Is that correct? Bobby
That's correct.
Socks.
Yes. Yes, that's right. This one, yeah, well, that was a shock. So they did finish in third. They came second in the televote, which, I don't think anybody would have predicted that going into the competition. But one of the things, their song probably had the least amount of staging, I guess you could say. It was really more about them than the song. I thought they even had a bit of a throwback to the costumes they wore in 1985 with the purple sort of suits and yeah, and the LED screen at the back just had Bobby Socks across the back there. It was really about celebrating them, I think, rather than the song itself. Yeah, so and I hadn't actually, it was only while I was watching the performance I sort of put two and two together and went, oh, hey, it's 40 years, maybe there's something in that. But you could see that they were just having a ball out there on the stage, and the audience were lapping it up. Like, everybody had genuine looks of happiness on their face. Just they're obviously, really well loved in Norway by the Norwegian public, and it was a really nice moment, actually.
It was really lovely they were there. It was almost like an interval act who was competing, which was quite nice. And look, I love a bit of Schlager and I love a bit of Bobby Socks, but even I had that ranked pretty low because it wasn't that good. But you know what? When I watched that performance, it was such a lovely little throwback and homage to themselves that if I was in Norway, I probably would have thrown them a vote, which is obviously what a lot of people did from the lovely emotion and the warmth of it all. So, yeah, well done them for getting third. Now, any other songs that jumped out for you that you enjoyed at all, Emma?
My 12 points from the studio versions was actually the opening act, which was Tony Damley. And I really enjoyed her song. It was called The Last Song, which ironically was performed first on the night. Yeah, so she has actually tried to represent Norway before quite a few years ago. But I really liked that as a studio version. I thought she had a very Dua Lipa kind of sound, actually. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a track that I can imagine hearing, on Australian radio, by any of the top FM stations. I don't know if it possibly had enough sort of build up for a Eurovision song, but it was a really great radio song. And interestingly, discovered that one of the writers is Sophie Tweed-Simmons, who is the daughter of Gene Simmons from Kiss, and she's got quite an established career in the US. So she was one of the songwriters behind the song, which I found quite interesting. Yeah, so that was probably my favourite performance before the competition. But yeah, I think she finished a little bit down the list. She finished in 5th place in the end. It was always going to be hard for her to come up from the opening the show, but yeah, I think she did a good job.
I also have to say that last song was my favorite as well. I loved it. Even had a little bit of like modern Kylie Minogue about it, which I really quite enjoyed. And I did notice when I gave that my first points in the Aussievision team rankings, I thought I was going to be one of few, and it ended up winning the Aussievision team rankings. It shows that it was a good little pop song.
It was, and I was surprised too, because I thought the same thing. I thought I sort of tend to do my rankings and then look at what everyone else thinks about it. And when I looked around the internet and sort of saw, okay, people are a bit lukewarm on this song, I thought, oh, okay, must just be me. And then when it won the Aussievision rankings, I'm like, oh, okay. And obviously, it's obviously got something about it that appeals to Australians. I don't know, but I still think it's a great song. I'll still continue listening to it,
Yeah, indeed. This is the beauty of the national finals. Well, look, that was Melody Grand Prix for another year. We'll talk about Kyle in the lead up, of course, to Basel. But until the next national final, which might be Melody Festival, and we'll get to talk to you about next time in a few weeks' time. We'll catch you later, Emma. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, Dale.
Okay, well, in Estonia, it was one of my favourite national finals and has been for years. It is Eesti Laul. And we are joined by Laura from the Aussievision team, who not only is our Estonia expert, she's actually been at the national final for the last 3 years over there. Good morning from Australia, Laura. Good evening in the UK. How are you?
G'day and Tere. I'm fantastic, thank you. Just trying to battle the post-Eesti Laul depression, but we're powering through. How are you?
Yes, good. Nice and early at 6 a.m. I think this is the earliest recording I've ever done. So that's a first there. For listeners, Laura is based in the UK but is an Aussie. And, as an Australian, we see all these national finals, Laura. You remember what it's like waking up and watching them. And I've always wanted to go to some of them. You've been to a few now, but especially the one in Estonia, 3 years running. What's the experience like of actually going to a national final overseas?
Well, as you know, I've been a big Eesti Laul fan for a long time. It has a very special place in my heart. I know it definitely took some dedication waking up at 4:30 in the morning in Melbourne back when I was living there to watch it. But it was even more magical just to go over there. And this year, it was back in the Unibet Arena, other fans may know as the Saku Suurhall, which is where Estonia hosted Eurovision back in 2002 when they hosted the contest.
Oh, fantastic. And what did you think about the show overall? Like, it seemed like I was really impressed with the quality of songs this year.
Yeah, there were a lot of diverse acts with a lot of talent, and it's great to see from people who are performing live for the first time in their life, possibly, to really established, experienced artists. It's great to see the range of talent and genre diversity on offer.
Yeah, it was a smorgasbord, wasn't it, indeed? And I guess one last question about what it's like there. I mean, we know what it's like when we watch it and it's in another language and we're kind of trying to follow along and all that. What's that like live in the arena when, I know you probably know a bit of Estonian, right? A little picked up over the years, but it still must be a bit of a different experience compared to, let's say, Australia Decides.
Yeah, I mean, it is a different experience. I know every national final I've been to has sort of a different vibe about it, different people going. I know the Estonian crowd, I know they tend to receive a lot of flack for perhaps not being as visibly excited on the outside as some of the other crowds, but I can assure you they're definitely feeling it 100% in their hearts.
Yeah, they're not the Benidorm Fest crowd, and that's probably a good thing, let's be honest. It's probably the chalk and cheese of the two. All right, well, let's talk about the actual winner itself, and let's have a little listen to the song. It's Tommy Cash with Espresso Macchiato.
Por favor, espresso macchiato corneo. Mi amore, espresso macchiato, 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 por favor, espresso macchiato, espresso macchiato.
All right, Laura, what did you think about this performance, and do you think it was a deserving winner?
Look, I know this might be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I do think he deserved the win. Now, the performance, I know he's received a lot of criticism online for perhaps, quote unquote, not putting in enough effort, or people thought he wasn't taking it seriously. But actually, I thought the staging concept was quite simple, but it was really effective. It was unconventional as well compared to the rest of the Eesti Laul lineup, which made it stand out a lot. It hinged a lot on Tommy and his comedy, his comedic delivery, the choreography. There were very few LED lights besides the coffee cup and Euro coin visuals. Not really simple lighting, not a whole lot going on in terms of camera work. Not really your typical Eurovision performance with your wind machines, your smoke machines, your pyro, your costume changes, all of that. He's thrown his coffee cup to the side. He's thrown the whole Eurovision rulebook out the window, and it's got people talking. And I reckon that the fact he's got people talking will end up contributing to his success.
Yeah, look, I have to agree. I've been really surprised about some of the backlash. God bless Euro fans. I love them, but sometimes they really confuse me. But I have to say with this, look, when it started, I was like, what is this vocal? But after he kind of got into it a little bit, after that first bit, I just thought the performance was just so fun and compelling. You kind of, even if you didn't want to like it, it was very hard not to. Just the use of the security guys as dancers, even at the start when they kept bringing him another espresso macchiato, I just found that really funny. And we were having a little Saturday more kind of get together, and I can't remember if we watched at the end of it or in the middle of it during one of the long kind of ad breaks or monologues or whatever, and we all kind of had the same reaction at the start, going, this is awful, in the first 10 seconds, because their vocal's really interesting, to the point of absolutely loving it. And I think he's going to win over a lot of people.
I'll tell you the moment he won me over, Dale. And that was right when he chucked out the coffee cup and started doing that dance. He kind of looked like one of those wacky, waving, inflatable, arm-flailing tube men that stand outside of car dealerships. It was weirdly mesmerizing to watch in the arena. I was just like, how can someone move like that? It was just mesmerizing. And yeah, I love the spaghetti limbs. And I can't wait to see all of Europe doing the spaghetti limbs dance.
Attempting to, anyway. Look, the one thing I will say is I was very surprised to see it win the jury. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I also was not expecting him to win the jury either. It was, look, there weren't really any like flashy vocal moments, which you think might usually like grab a jury, but I think my theory is they might have chosen to reward it for standing out and for Tommy doing what he does do, even though it might not seem like much. What he does do, he does really, really well.
In the public vote, because obviously it went to the super final, in the public vote, he absolutely dominated, didn't he?
Absolutely. He got 83% of the televote in the end, and that, I believe, is a new record in the three-person super final. I know they've had that for a number of years now, and then before that it used to be a two-person super final, and I think Randy back in 2009 was the previous record holder. I'm not sure it's like that surprising a result given his star power in Estonia and also like internationally. Like he's collaborated with Charlie XCX, listen back to Pop 2. He toured around the world and including in Australia, and he also worked with Karia, who was right there in the green room with him, no doubt, drumming up that support. Also, it really felt like on the ground, the whole country was getting behind him. Like the next day on the Sunday, there were cafes selling espresso macchiatos on special for €1 to celebrate him winning. The people of Estonia are united for Tommy Cash, and honestly, that is really, really special to see.
Yeah, I love when any country really gets behind an entry. Now, let's talk a little bit about the other two in the super final. Now, runner-up was Andrei Zevakin and featuring Karita. What did you think of this entry?
Look, watching it in the arena was really interesting. I really liked that they used a whole lot of the stage. I imagine it would have sounded better down the camera. I believe I've watched it once before down the camera after the show just to see what it was like. So I won the press poll too. I think it really grabbed a lot of the attention of the media who were there on the day and saw it in the arena. And what I did see wasn't necessarily all of the camera work, because there was like start and a couple of parts where they were using these little boxes and it was all very closed off. So we didn't see a whole lot of the start, but what we did see was the fantastic way they use the stage and the more closed off parts when they open it up. It was quite impressive. Obviously, Andrei Zevakin, he's been in Eesti Laul a few times, and Karita is actually his girlfriend in real life. And it was actually her first time singing live on stage. She actually works as a hairdresser, and yeah, they've been together for quite a while at the time of recording on this podcast. And Karita, bless her heart, she's taken vocal lessons to prepare for Eesti Laul, so good on her.
Yeah, I was really. You mentioned this in the lead up to us doing this pod, and I was like, oh wow, I had no idea what a like fascinating kind of approach to the whole thing, and it all came together. I was really impressed. And I like this in Eesti Laul. You see it so often. They're being a little bit experimental in what they, put down the TV lens. Obviously, it might look quite different in the arena. But it was always, I liked it start with the video and then just the kind of different camera shots and the way they use the stage. I thought it was really good, a little modern song. I really liked the song. I thought it was great. I think it was my 10 points in the Aussievision rankings too. So Andrei Zevakin does bring really interesting music to Eesti Laul each time. I like the approach. So a worthy runner-up, I think. And Laura, who was third in the super final?
It was Ann Marlen with Kölm, which means cold in Estonian. And it was between -8 and -5 degrees Celsius in Estonia during the weekend of Eesti Laul this year, and snowing a lot on the Saturday. So maybe that may have had some bearing on the result. Who knows? I know I found myself singing the chorus a lot whenever someone in our group of travellers said they were cold.
Yeah, I thought it was a great entry. She performed it well. It was all very nice and all very good. Look, it didn't absolutely blow my socks off, but I totally understood why she was there. I think she did a great job and deserved to be in the super final.
Look, it was Anne Marlen's second time at Eesti Laul. Her first participation was with Lõpuks back in 2022. It was that year where they'd had the quarterfinals with the music videos, and sadly it didn't get past that round, didn't qualify from there, so we hadn't seen her perform live yet. But I tell you what, she absolutely knocked it out of the park with that vocal performance. I got chills. I mean, maybe I'm biased because it was my personal favourite. I love a sad trance banger, so this was 100% right up my alley. And in another year, I think it could have won and been a fantastic entry for Estonia. So I was absolutely delighted to see it make the super final this year.
Now, outside of that top three, was there any other acts that you want to give a special mention to, Laura?
Of the competing entries, it was a song that perhaps I didn't really like so much in studio, even though it was actually the Aussie Vision team's favourite song. But live, she absolutely won me over with the sheer emotion in her voice during the live performance. It was Elissa with The Last to Know. Look, you could tell the song and the story behind it was so personal and that it really meant a lot to her. It wowed me when I saw it live for the first time. I got goosebumps. And of course, it's Eurovision. You gotta love a big dress and a big wind machine moment. It's just so quintessentially Eurovision, and I was living for it.
It was amazing that you were there, Laura. It was amazing that you joined us for the podcast again to talk us through everything Estonia. And now I'll let you get on with your evening over there in the UK, and I'll go and have another coffee.
Thank you very much. Stay weird, Estonia. Stay weird, Australia.
Well, we had the national final in Poland this year, and I have to say, I think it was pretty good quality. To talk us through the national final in Poland, we have the amazing Hayley, who's back for the podcast. Not since Montenegro we haven't had you on, Hayley. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Now, Hayley, you caught the whole national final Poland. What did you think of the show overall?
Oh, look, that was amazing. The production value of the show was incredible. I think compared to the last time they had the national final, it was on steroids. It was slick, the staging looked amazing, and I think every single act was really, really good. And it moved quickly, and the results at the end were quick, and everything was just sort of condensed into I don't know if it was a 2-hour time frame or not, but it was totally enjoyable. I loved every minute of it.
I agree. I was really pleasantly surprised. I thought there was a lot of really good quality songs, a good mix-up, some more traditional, some real contemporary radio type stuff. Hosts were good. It just looked so good. The weird things where they were talking, there was one guy in a suit talking about old Eurovision things in the past or something. Maybe they could have got rid of that. But I watched that and was like, let Poland host Eurovision. They're almost ready for it, I reckon. So I was very impressed with the show.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking the same thing. I think if they ever get to host it, they'll do a wonderful job. The host, Mikhail Spark, he was just absolutely incredible. And it took me a little while to work out exactly who it was because he looked so different to when he sung for Poland a few years earlier. But that song he sung, it felt like he was setting himself up maybe for another entry on behalf of Poland, maybe in a few more years. But he's got a spectacular voice.
Oh, he was phenomenal. And I was the same. It took me so long to work out that was the same person. I loved his 2016 song, but my God, what he was doing now was amazing. I love his look. I'd love to see him at Eurovision, but, have to wait another year. Hopefully he goes into it next year. And let's start talking about the winner itself because it was quite spectacular. Let's have a little listen to it. It is Justina with Gaia. Well, Hayley, what did you think of this performance, and do you think it was a worthy winner?
It is absolutely a worthy winner. This is sitting at the very top of my Eurovision songs at the moment. It was spectacular. She sounded great. The whole hanging down from the ceiling, the outfits, everything was great. but I think they need to work on the dancing a little bit. But I guess after she sung, it was a no-brainer who was going to go. I think no one else came close to her, and I feel that she has the sentiment there as well that people will sort of want her to go again, especially when she's tried even recently, like last year, I think. So I think they definitely chose the right song, and it's got some power behind it.
Oh, does it just have some power behind it? I was just blown away by it. Like, I knew, like, you could hear the studio that this is going to be something, and even there's a little rehearsal clip, but she nails when she's doing that, like, big note vocal, which is half the song. She nails it every time, whether she's spinning around in circles. I don't know how she's not getting dizzy when she's up in the air and she's screaming and she's dancing, and the crazed but kind of amazing energy of the whole performance. It kind of reminded me in the kind of crazy energy of Melody from Spain. It was just so much going on. Maybe they need to dial that back a bit, but I was just loving it. And at the moment, it's my 12 points too, Hayley.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. We've got good taste. Yeah, I always worry about what Poland will do with staging. And I think the basis of what they should be doing is there, but just no need for extra graphics on the screen or anything like that. I just think they need to maybe work on some of her dancing, but also making sure that she's not going to be out of breath when she's singing some of those really long notes as well. So I think it's almost there. It's almost ready, I think. What do you reckon?
Oh, yeah, just dial it back a little bit, but, like, keep a lot of the same elements. Like, I loved it. Like, I think I felt like she didn't start super strong. She was almost, like, ever so slightly out of time as well, I think. But I think there's definitely going, and I know some people like Wee Wee Blogs has been kind of attacked for this, but I do agree that she's going to have to work a little bit on the enunciation, because whether we like it or not, viewers at home are going to want to hear, if it's going to be in English, we're going to want it doesn't have to be super clear, but it did get a little bit messy, and I don't think it's because she can't speak English well at all. I think it's because she's doing so much that it starts to affect the vocal, not in terms of being off key or anything, but just about getting her mouth around those words while trying to do 1,000 different dance moves at the same time. So I'd like to see them dial it back and just give her a few more moments to shine while still keeping the crazed energy, because I loved it.
I agree. I was a little bit concerned as well about some of the English that she sung from the studio track. It's almost over, like it's almost drowned out by the sound of the music and her voice, but it was a bit clearer, I think, when we watched it in the national final. But you're right, there's something she needs to work on that a little bit so we can understand that she is actually swapping over to English when she's doing so, you know?
Ultimately, I'm just so happy that this is going, and I get to see this in the stadium, so I'm delighted. Now, look, Hayley, second place was not too far away. Like, I mean, she got 39% of the vote, and Schwada and Nikosh, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, with 24% with Lusterka. A lot of people love that second place. What did you think of their performance?
Oh, it was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. I was a little bit concerned how the studio track would transfer to live, but I didn't need to worry at all. It sounded fantastic. I think nearly everyone sounded fantastic. So, but I did not. I thought that if there was going to be a threat to Justina, it would be them. But yeah, they were very good, and I hope they come back again to give it another go.
All right, well, let's go up north to Lithuania now, because you covered not only the final on the weekend, Hayley, but you've been covering this all the way through from a Heat 1, which feels like it was weeks and weeks and weeks ago. It also felt like the final went for weeks and weeks and weeks. What did you think of, I guess, the national final overall and the final itself? Because it did feel very long.
It was very long. It went for, I guess, with the final 6 long weeks. Look, I'm going to say straight away, it was too long and there were too many songs. It was just too much. I really do hope next year they look at whether that format worked. But as for the actual final, that was long too. So they upgraded to a 20,000 person arena, which was interesting. And at times it wasn't really obvious until they sort of had those pullback shots. Yes, it was a long, long show. I wonder if the super final at the end was really needed.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like they've kind of tinkered around with their approach, Lithuania, and I mean the one consistent thing is that there's just always far too many shows and far too many songs, and even the super finals sort of been changed around a little bit as well. So I don't know, Lithuania is just kind of Lithuania, and I think we just have to all suffer through it, which it kind of felt like towards the end. Even though I thought a lot of the songs were quite good, it was just a very long final. It made Sanremo seem actually kind of normal, but we did end up having a winner there, and it was Katarsis with Tavo Akis. Well, this is a really interesting one, Hayley. Like, not the kind of typical Eurovision song. What did you think of this? And again, was it a worthy winner?
I think it was a worthy winner. There were several songs that would have been worthy, I think, but this had so much support behind it. I was on Twitter sort of during the show, and people were just losing their mind over Katarsis. They must have a really big following in Lithuania. So it is an unusual song to be sending to Eurovision, I think. It is something I personally like. So I'll be really interested to see how this goes, especially if it stays sort of one of the only rock songs in the group of songs that we get this year. I think it's got a really good chance of doing quite well, because, you know, there's always people that like rock that watch Eurovision. I'm one of them. So I'm sure it will do okay.
Yeah, look, I'm really, and look, you know, Mike and I talked about this on, I can't remember if it was the main podcast or the bonus episode last week, and I was really surprised to see that he actually quite liked it when I was expecting him not to. Well, I normally don't mind this genre, and I felt it was so dull and so lifeless, and I felt nothing for it. I was just, sorry, when does it actually get going? And look, I appreciate it overall. It's just, to me, it's not a competition song. Obviously, it's a competition song in Lithuania. That's fine. I do think, and I do agree with you, that in terms of Eurovision, at least it's the one it's going to stand out. You know, it is going to stand out, and I think people will really appreciate it. And I do think it's a lovely piece of music. I just don't feel anything for it at all. And see, I love like Southern Lights. I love Southern Lights. You know, I thought they did a great job in Liverpool, and I would have loved to see them get through. Well, I find this I just find it just a little too dull for me. But hey, I'm obviously just missing something. Maybe I'm just not down with the kids.
Whether it's a competition song, I don't know. I agree with you there, but it's what they've chosen. So I guess we'll all wait and see in May how it goes.
Indeed. And look, you know, I think, as I said, it's a good choice. Lithuania's chosen it. I understand why they've chosen it, so fair play. And everyone who loves it, don't send me hate mail. All right, well, look, that is the wonderful Lithuania done for another year. It's always a bit of relief, Hayley, isn't it, when Lithuania's finally finished?
Oh, you know what I'm doing on Sunday morning? I'm sleeping in.
Oh, you beauty. You deserve it. Much deserved. Well, thank you for all your coverage there, Hayley, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
No worries. I'll speak to you next time.
All right, well, it's that time of the week. Mike is joining us here to pass judgment, pass his verdict on another song.
Yes, my little guest spot for the week. Here I am.
Yes. And you, on the weekend, probably saw more national finals than you have the entire season.
I watched all 29 songs from Italy, which is 29 songs more than I've really watched from everybody else so far. And also, I have to say, I did watch Justyna from Poland, which I was very impressed with.
You were impressed with?
Very impressed with. We could probably take off about 6 elements of the staging. What was she hanging off the roof? That was amazing. Like, if she'd been upside down like a bat, that would have been fantastic.
And I did ask this on Twitter, but I'm intrigued in your thoughts. What has more chaotic energy staging? Is it either Melody from Spain? Is it Justyna from Poland?
Justyna.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty close,
It is pretty close. I think the
poll said Spain still. People still thought it was Spain.
I think it was a lot of unnecessary stuff. I mean, it's all unnecessary. But no, I was really impressed with it. One of my favourites for the year so far. Poland, well done.
Yeah, and what about Sanremo? What did you think of that?
Really good. Probably not as good as we've seen the last couple of years. I think we've been very spoilt probably the last 2 or 3 years as far as the quality of song. But ultimately on the final night, I thought everything came up pretty well. I was pretty shocked with the results of the top 5, to be honest, not to see Georgia there at least.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Ollie was a good winner. I don't think he'll go.
You don't think he'll go?
I don't think he'll go. I don't think he'll cancel his tour. So we'll see who they choose, because they don't just automatically go to the second person.
No.
I think why not just go and give Annalisa a chance? Surely she's got some really cool single waiting to drop.
Yeah, I know. I don't think, but I think you've got to have someone from Sanremo.
Well, she was on the cover night. It counts.
Tenuous links.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we're not here to talk too much more about. Well, I could talk about Sanremo all day, but we are going to talk about one of the songs, and that is the favourite from Denmark. It's Cecile with Hallucination. Your thoughts on this one?
Very much in my wheelhouse kind of thing, this type of song. You know, I do enjoy sort of, Nordic pop, and this very much ticks the boxes. So, but first and foremost, very lovely vocal tone. I really enjoyed the kind of opening on this one. The production sounds fine, without really blowing anybody away. And then we build to this really high note. And I do think the vocal in this is what could possibly make it stand out.
Yeah, I like this. I think it's fun. I think it's a banger. Like, it's a banger of a song. It's really good. Like, I'd be very happy to see this and see this go. This is a good song. I like it.
We're not really reinventing the wheel here or anything. Like, it is sort of pretty solid, and I'd almost say formulaic. But at the same token, it's very pleasing.
It's done well.
It does what it says on the packet kind of thing, yeah.
But maybe is it falling into the whole, I like this, but I don't love it?
We'll get to that. Possibly.
All right, yeah.
Look, I think with some tidy vocals, because again, I think the vocal is very important here. It's what stops it from flatlining really in the studio, is getting into those higher ranges. So if she can hit all those, then perhaps we've got something special. But let's face it, it's going to be some tidy vocals, some tidy choreography, one would imagine. You'd have some dancers on this, and you got a fairly solid package.
I hope they have dancers. You never know sometimes. It's probably just going to be her out there with some lasers and something like that.
Possibly.
But we'll see. Look, I think this is, definitely one of the favourites with fans. I think it might be the favourite.
Oh, okay.
So it does kind of, I'm not surprised to see that from the lineup that I've kind of had a half listen to all the way through from all the songs.
Okay, because my first reaction is if this came on a playlist, I would probably let it play through. I wouldn't stop it. But am I really seeking this out? Am I really like, wow, this is like a sand?
Oh my God.
Nobody else was seeking that out apart from me and our friend Clinton. But yeah, like I loved that and I really went for it. This, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's nice. That's cool. That's good.
I think actually, like, I would like this a lot more if it was earlier in the season. I think the problem is we're a little bit in female banger overload. Like, I don't think I've really filled up my quota of queens that I'm standing with their upbeat banger songs, and I don't think there's room for many more.
One of my notes here is in a competition sense with what we've already got. We've got, Justina, Melody, these big, brash, bold performances. This would probably get stomped, really, if it got to the competition itself, unless they really do bring something staging-wise and vocal-wise that really sets it apart.
That's true.
Because ultimately, everyone's going to go, oh, that was kind of nice, but meh, a bit like sand, maybe. You know what I mean?
Maybe it's a little bit more contemporary. Like, I mean, you look at things like even Erika Vickman, it's a bit of an out there kind of very European song.
Yeah.
Melody is melody, and look, it's not a very contemporary number.
Yeah, it was contemporary in
Justina's-
2006. It was amazing.
Justina is 2000s kind of Eurovision as well. Miriana Conte has like that, but it's
Which
maybe
is probably
this
the
is
most
more-
modern one of the
maybe-
ones we're talking about.
Maybe the juries were like this.
Yeah, it feels a little safe and anemic in a way.
As I said, maybe the juries were like this.
But yeah, look, we've got some big brash stuff, and this isn't giving me big and brash. It's
agree.
giving me cool.
Yeah.
Fine. Nice. I like it.
Very
It's not
Denmark.
Very Denmark. Very, very Denmark.
All right, thanks for another week, Mike. Thank you for your verdict yet again, and we'll see you again next week.
Pleasure. Thank you for sending me the heart-racing songs of Denmark and Iceland, which you know I always love.
So on the bonus episode, you can hear Mike talk about 2 Iceland songs and another Danish song. Here's a little preview of that bonus episode.
Annoying high school performance that struck me as those vocals are woeful.
They are bad, aren't they?
Awful. You can't send that. Like, sorry. That is laughable. Really, really laughable. And
All right, if you want to listen to that, you can subscribe to Patreon. The link will be in the show notes. Well, that's it for another week. We'll see you soon, and hopefully some big news coming up.